So you've started a cult to praise the one who waits, maybe even gotten yourself a couple of devoted followers worshipping what you're doing and giving you the faith and devotion needed to grow as a leader. But now comes the big choice. What will your cult be about? Will it be a gentle cult that only eats veggies, or a cult that worships, sacrifices, and eats its elders? Can't decide? Well, I'm here to help. I'm Super Nellius, and today's video is about the doctrines and rituals you will unlock in Cult of the Lamb. Of course, I'll also be going over the doctrines rituals that benefits any player the most, as some give more significant benefits to running and operating a cult than others do. Still, these are just my opinion. Don't let my opinion sway your dark influences. To begin, I'm going to briefly go over the rituals. The rituals are unlocked by declaring a new doctrine in the crown menu in the temple. Each doctrine costs 1 commandment stone and has a cooldown of about 1 in-game day before you can select a new doctrine. So don't think about holding on to commandment stones and teching through the doctrines quickly. It's not an option. You can have a total of 12 rituals unlocked at a given time. However, when selecting some doctrines, you'll notice the choices between 2 rituals. These rituals are mutually exclusive, and you cannot unlock all the rituals in the game. In addition, sometimes the doctrine is a choice between a ritual and an action. If you choose the action, you may not unlock the ritual, causing you to actually only have 11 rituals instead of the max 12. Now suppose you only take one thing away from this video. In that case, it should be the following rituals. These I feel are the best ones to take, as they give you the ability to create an infinite loop of gaining follower loyalty, which inevitably levels up your cultists, makes them better for sacrifices, and more potent as demons. So if you want to achieve this, you'll want to make sure you take the Ritual of Ressurection and the Ascend Follower rituals. These are found in the Afterlife Doctrines Tier 2 and Law Doctrines Tier 1 respectively. Using these rituals will allow you to ascend a follower, which grants loyalty to all followers based on the ascended follower's level, which you can then resurrect and do it again off cooldown indefinitely. With the right cult tech, you can essentially do this loop every 20 minutes or so. This loop can also be used with the Ritual of Sacrifice, allowing you to quickly unlock new weapons and curses, or once you've maxed out your level, infinite gold. Now let's go over the doctrines. Outside of the first 2 doctrines you absolutely have to take, the rest of the doctrines are broken into 5 categories: Afterlife, Work and Worship, Law and Order, Possession, and lastly, Sustenance. Each one of these categories has 4 tiers to it, where you can make a choice between 2 options to dictate how your cult will operate. Some of these doctrines could be new traits that every cult member and any new cult members will immediately have, or it could be a new ritual, or even a new building. It's up to you to decide what you think will best help you run your cult. But if you can't decide, I'm here to help. Now I will go over each of the options you can choose from and provide my opinion on which is the better choice, as some of these choices fundamentally impact the game and have significant benefits, meanwhile some choices have no impact at all. Let's get started with Afterlife. The Afterlife line of doctrines typically deal with death in some way, either giving you ways to benefit from sacrificing your followers, how to treat the elderly, or what to do with their corpses. Everything in this category is death adjacent. For Afterlife Tier 1, the choice is between the doctrine's Belief in Sacrifice trait or the Belief in Afterlife trait. Belief in Afterlife seems like the more logical choice, as any time a cult member dies, you'll only lose 5 faith instead of the default 20. However, with the loop I mentioned earlier, you won't be letting followers die naturally. So I recommend to go with the Belief in Sacrifice trait to get the bonus 20 faith for every time we sacrifice a follower. Afterlife 2 prompts us with the choice between the Ritual of Resurrection and the Funeral Ritual. If you want to roleplay a merciful cult leader, by all means choose funerals, but you'll be unable to perform the resurrection loop that helps level up all cult members' loyalty. My choice for Afterlife Tier 2 will be to go with the Ritual of Resurrection. For Afterlife 3, the choice is between Respect Your Elders or the Good Die Young traits. Both traits are fine in and of themselves. Again, if you're planning on using the resurrection loop that I outlined earlier, then the Good Die Young trait synergizes well with it. That way, if you sacrifice or ascend the elder, you get a small bump in faith. Otherwise, choose whichever one you'd like. Neither has a significant impact on your cult. Lastly, Afterlife 4 presents us with a choice between Return to Earth or Grieve the Fallen. This is a choice between a cult building or an independent follower action. I don't have a preferred choice for this tier, as I've taken both in different save files, and I find the impact negligible for both. If you want your followers making more passive faith, Grieve the Fallen is better. If you want an additional source of fertilizer, then go with Return to the Earth. That wraps up the first category of doctrines. On to work and worship. As the title of this category would suggest, work and worship is about affecting how industrious your followers are. Do they work hard or play hard? Do they worship you or fear you? That's up to you to decide in this line of doctrine. For tier 1, we're presented with a choice between two traits: faithful or industrious. Personally, I find industrious better, as it affects all followers working on a task outside of worshiping, i.e. farmers, lumberyards, mining, refining goods, etc., which is ultimately a bigger impact, as generating devotion is fast enough as is, but sometimes you really need that refined stone or wood to make your next building or decoration. Tier 2, I think, is the most impactful tier in the work and worship doctrine category. Here you can choose between two follower commands: inspire or intimidate. You can choose between having your cult members love you or fear you, and although Michael Scott says it best,
would I rather be feared or loved? Easy, both. I want people to be afraid of how much they love me.
We can't have it both ways. So my recommendation is to be loved. Inspiring your followers gives a bigger boost to loyalty and can really help level up your followers faster. I tried out Intimidate, and despite the 10% bonus, the negative impact of follower loyalty is too much. In tier 3, we get to pick between two rituals: the Glory of Construction ritual or the Ritual of Enlightenment. I typically go with Glory of Construction, since it will construct all your buildings instantly, and there's no limit to how many buildings you have laid down. In theory, you could put down a full cult grounds of plants and have 3 followers build it all instantly. Meanwhile, the other option is a 20% devotion generation bonus at the shrine for 3 days, which again, devotion isn't a big issue to obtain. Finally, tier 4, the Capstone Doctrines, is a choice between the Glory Through Toil ritual and the Holy Day ritual. Here again, it's up to you. The Glory Through Toil ritual makes it so your followers work through the day and night for 3 days. Meanwhile, the Holy Day ritual gives your followers the day off and a huge boost of faith, about 80 faith. I like to go with the Holy Day, as the faith boost can be enough to counteract a bunch of followers' deaths. I'm looking at you, Shimura, or some back-to-back failed crusades. Again, Calamar, toughest boss in the game, IMO. The next doctrine category is Law and Order, which is all about keeping your followers in line and not illegal drama created by Dick Wolf. For the first tier of Law and Order, the choice is between Murder Follower Action and the Ascend Follower Ritual. Both have their merits. Again, if you want to level up your followers' loyalty quickly and infinitely, then the Ascend Follower is the better choice. It increases loyalty in all your followers, those who partake in the ritual, up to 50% of their max loyalty, based on the loyalty level of the selected follower. This is how the Ascend Resurrect loop works. It also gives a decent amount of faith when done, so it also has a multitude of benefits. That's not to say the Murder Follower action is bad. In fact, it can be quite handy for taking care of pesky followers that refuse to fall in line. Because the Ascend Follower is a ritual, you can only do it about once every 20 to 30 minutes, depending on if you have the ritual cooldowns tech unlocked. Meanwhile, the Murder Follower is an action that you can do to each follower, and so long as you don't get caught during the day, it doesn't have a negative impact on your followers' faith. The tier 2 option is a choice between the ritualistic fight pit or a wedding. You can go either or with this one. I don't see intrinsic benefits to either. With the wedding ritual, you get to marry as many of your followers as you want based on a cooldown of the ritual, and you get 30 faith. Or you can go with the fight pit and have your own little fight club in the cult. Maybe you can make all your newbies fight on the first night in the cult. Ultimately, this is a tier that you can choose whichever one suits your flavor. It doesn't impact the resurrection loop, so have at it. I like to make love, not war. Tier 3 is another choice between two cult traits, either belief in original sin or belief in absolution. Since typically you won't have too many followers in prison, at least I hope not, you'll get more benefit from the belief in absolution, since you'll get 10 faith every morning you don't have someone in jail. In theory, you could even release someone from the stockades before nightfall, and you can still benefit from the morning faith bonus and return them to the stockades to serve their sentence, like the opposite of weekend jail. If you want to be a really twisted cult leader, the belief in original sin lets you put non-dissenting followers in jail with little negative impact. The choice is yours. Finally, the Capstone Doctrine for Law and Order at Tier 4 is a choice between Loyalty Enforcer and Tax Enforcer. Both are rituals that let you select a follower to have a specific job of going around the grounds and either enforcing loyalty, essentially giving inspiration to all your followers, or collecting taxes. Personally, I think tax enforcement is important. I'm looking at you, Jeff Bezos. But in Cult of the Lamb, the Loyalty Enforcer is the better option. You can make more money sacrificing a follower on cooldown than you can make having the Tax Enforcer going around collecting taxes. The next category we're going to go over is possessions, and I'm not talking about the possession of Hannah Grace, but I am talking about personal possessions, the things that your cultists covet the most. Tier 1 possessions is a choice between extort tithes or bribe followers. Extorting tithes gives you a tiny amount of money, and it's honestly more a pain to go around extorting your followers just to get 3 gold coins. Meanwhile, bribe your followers costs 3 gold and gives them a little loyalty. Sometimes this loyalty is enough to level them up and get them to the next loyalty level, fattening them up for sacrifice. I highly recommend bribe over extort. Keep in mind that you cannot extort or bribe elder followers. Tier 2 is another cult trait choice. You can either have all cultists believe in materialism or believe in false idols. As a heathen and a filthy pinko, I abstain from materialism and enforce my cultists to believe in false idol. This is a cult after all. But in all seriousness, the impact of gaining faith from building decorations is better than the impact from building better sleeping quarters. Mainly because you only ever build enough sleeping quarters for all your cultists, which is around 20 near the end of the game. But you can always build more decorations. Next up is Tier 3. This is a choice between the Alms for the Poor ritual and the Ritual of Enrichment. Go with Alms for the Poor. Not only does it only cost 50 gold, it increases follower loyalty and faith. The cost of the ritual is also impacted by the ritual cost tech, making it only cost 25 gold to do the ritual. When done at a cult level 3 or cult level 4, the cost is further mitigated as you can then do a sermon after the ritual. And you'll either get about 15 gold back from the sermon, meaning the true cost of the ritual is about 10 gold, or you'll get about 38 to 40 gold at cult level 4 after the sermon, meaning the ritual was free. And who doesn't love free? The Ritual of Enrichment costs faith, and I've never seen it return more than 50 gold, so I don't think it's worth it. But hey, if you're a greedy capitalist, then maybe this is the ritual for you. For Tier 4 possessions, you can choose between another 2 cult traits, Sacral Architecture or the Devotee trait. I've tried out both and my preference is for Sacral Architecture. This applies to all buildings, so you gain faith when building anything. Meanwhile, the additional faith from Devotee wasn't that noticeable. There was no major impact taking either, so go with the flavor that suits you the best, but again, my preference is for the Sacral Architecture. Now we've reached the last doctrine category. Before I get into it, I just want to thank you for watching this far. I know it's been a long video and I hope it's been informative. If you like this video and want to see more content from me, I do appreciate you leaving a like and hitting that subscribe button. And if you didn't like it, hit the dislike button. It still helps me understand what content to make here on YouTube. And without further ado, it's the Sustenance category, which is all about how to keep your cultists fed and happy. Well, mostly fed. First up is the Tier 1 selection, which is between Ritual Fast or Feasting Ritual. Both are rituals, but with different degrees of impact on your cult. Cult of Fast locks the hunger bar for 3 days, but does not restore it. It just locks it. Your followers will also not eat during those 3 days. So if they're starving at the beginning of it, they're going to be starving at the end of it. Feasting Ritual instantly feeds your cult to full, gives 25 faith, and costs you no food. So it's a great option when all you've got is maybe bowls of poop and grass to sustain your cult. My recommendation is the Feasting Ritual because of these benefits. Tier 2 is a trait choice between cannibalism and eating grass. Fitting for a cult led by a lamb. Fitting for a cult led by a lamb with a possessed chapeau. Honestly, it's mainly a flavor choice. The big impact is that either trait removes the negative impact from eating bowls made out of followers' remains or bowls of grass, respectively. Neither choice locks you out of eating the other items or even eating other types of food, so it's ultimately just a preference. That being said, if you are sacrificing your followers or ascending them, you'll end up with a decent collection of follower meat. So cannibalism synergizes well with the resurrection loop, since you can turn the negatives of cannibalism into additional positives for your cult. Tier 3 is likely my favorite choice in the sustenance category, as it's the choice between the Ritual of Harvest and the Ritual of the Ocean's Bounty. Ritual of Harvest is similar to the Glory of Construction ritual insofar that it instantly grows all crops. Now, I haven't tested it myself, so I am unsure if it grows them to maturity or if it grows them to fertilized quality. If you'd have to manually fertilize them yourself. If it's the latter, then it's definitely not that great of a choice, but if you have a lot of farmland, then it's a solid ritual to take. That being said, my favorite ritual is the Ritual of the Ocean's Bounty. This gives you a buff for 2 days that doubles what you catch while fishing and increases the odds of special fish to be hooked. So lobsters, crabs, squids, and octopi, the 4 fish required to complete the Fishman's questline, which you can easily compete in one fishing outing with this buff active. I have used this ritual to quickly unlock my first fleece when I started playing this game, and it's my preference. But in this tier, it's whatever suits your playstyle more. If you like fishing more, go for the Ocean's Bounty. But if you do a lot of farming, then the harvest can be a nice benefit too. The last doctrine we will look at is the Sustenance Capstone Doctrine, Tier 4. Here we are faced with the choice between loving shrooms or not doing drugs. That is to say, we have a cult trait to pick. Either Substances Encouraged trait or the Belief in Prohibitionism trait. Originally, I was going to say that the Substances Encouraged trait is better, since when you brainwash your cult, it gives a faith bonus on top of locking your faith bar. But now, I think the Belief in Prohibitionism is actually the better trait to take, because you can only brainwash your cultists once, then it's on cooldown. It's a small bump in faith. Meanwhile, with Prohibitionism, you gain a flat 10% bonus to work speed and devotion, on top of any other traits you've already taken, and only have a 50% chance for cultists to be sick after brainwashing. Plus, curing sickness is super easy. And again, I don't use this ritual too often unless I'm trying to make them eat a bunch of bowls of poop to unlock a specific follower skin, but that's gonna make them sick anyways. So I see the Prohibitionism trait as the superior choice. And that's it. That's the video. Thank you for making it this far. I really appreciate it, and I hope to see you in the next video. But now you gotta go. Go lead your cults to greatness. See you later, folks.